Welcome to Pulp Mortem. My name is Jake, and let's get right to it. Today we're talking about Invaders from Rigel by Fletcher Pratt. But first, a little bit about Mr. Pratt. No, not that Pratt. Fletcher Pratt was described in his obituary as a bearded and gnome-like figure. Fletcher Pratt was born on April 25th, 1897 and died in 1956 at the age of 59. While Pratt obviously wrote some science fiction, he was much more well known for his writings on history, wartime, and biographies, and he designed his own naval war game. While he did some science fiction books on his own, he frequently collaborated with fellow author L. Sprague de Camp. Pratt was a very interesting character, and those inclined to look into his life will not be disappointed. This was the first book of his that I read, and I got a sense of his eccentric personality immediately. So let's talk about Invaders from Rigel, a scientific community that had miraculously changed to metal. Scientists have said that the comet would be harmless, but they couldn't have been more wrong. The story begins with Murray Lee, a New Yorker that awakens to discover that he's turned to metal. With his scientist neighbor Benjamin Franklin Ruby, Murray Lee begins scouring the city, looking for survivors, anyone who has survived the change in the now silent New York City. Soon, a community is established, but strange things begin happening. Members of this community begin to go missing, carried off by these strange, four-winged, dodo-like creatures. Before our metal-skinned survivors know it, they are in a fight for their lives against the four-winged dodos, who we discover are just pawns for the elephant-like Lassans. Their battles rage down the East Coast, and eventually our metal heroes are saved by the Australian Navy, who have strangely turned blue.
You never know where help is going to come from until you look for it.
Eventually, the remainder of humanity, as altered as they are, bands together and all-out war ensues. The story was originally a novella published in 1932 under the title Onslaught from Rigel, and was expanded to a full novel and released in 1960. The version I have was the first paperback edition printed in 1964. It is 127 pages, and Airmont had the nerve to charge 95 cents back then. The original hardcover is kind of hard to find. I found one copy online, on the whole internet, one copy for sale for $75, but this mass-produced paperback you can find for $5 to $7 or cheaper. The cover is pretty fun and is straight up pulp. Alien rockets, fishbowl helmets, and even the ray gun has a fishbowl helmet. Wait a minute, I recognize that guy. But as fun as this cover is, it has nothing to do with the story. There are no rocket ships, no green aliens, no flags. This is a picture that Airmont Publishing obviously had lying around somewhere, and they didn't feel like going out and hiring a new artist.
And I try to live my life at this point with as little effort as possible.
Alright, so what's good about this? Pratt wasn't trying to create the next great American novel. He was just having fun, and it shows. When I was 17 or 18, I got my first laptop, and I started writing. And all of these stories and ideas that I've had ever since I was young suddenly I had an outlet for them, and it was like a brick was removed from a dam, just a burst of creativity. I couldn't write fast enough. For a course of about 6 months, I wrote 6 books. I took several of them down to Kinko's, had them printed and spiral brown, and distributed them amongst my friends and family. To all of them I say I'm sorry, because these should have never seen the light of day. They were all garbage, and it was so much fun. There's no feeling like that flash flood of creativity, and that is Invaders from Rigel. The pages here are soaked with childlike glee, and Pratt writes like he can't get the words down fast enough. The first half of the book in particular is so comically fast-moving and fun. Pratt here is having fun, and fun is contagious. And that's it. Now, the bad. Errors, both grammatical and punctuation. Not a big deal, you still get the story across, but it instantly takes you out of the story. This book reads like a first draft, and giving Pratt's free writing style, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. The first half of the book is an absolute roller coaster. The second half, the momentum grinds to a halt. A new protagonist is introduced, and we spend a great deal of time with him being locked in a cage with a metal ape man, having his mind read by a bipedal elephant. Along with the momentum, the fun here grinds to a halt, and the story kind of limps to a formulaic finish. The combat sequences, of which there are many, are hard to follow and pretty confusing. As each new battle rages on, new weapons, new vehicles, new armaments are introduced. I say introduced, but they weren't actually explained clearly. I still don't understand the floppy light cannon or the fish-shaped tank that was floating with a snout, or the difference between the first or the second gravitational beam. I don't understand what any of these mean, and I doubt anybody else does either.
What the hell are you talking about?
Mr. Yoshiro, we have a Japanese manservant. And Pratt's impression of a Japanese man might be the inspiration for Mickey Rooney at Breakfast at Tiffany's.
But that was 2 weeks ago! You cannot go on or keep ringing my bell!
Now, I actually applaud Pratt for having a positive and contributing Japanese character in an era where the Japanese were typically just pulp villains. However, it is clear that Fletcher Pratt has never met a Japanese man, and his portrayal of one was so comically stereotypical and cliche that it had crossed the border from bad to just outright comedy.
Just think yellow and follow me.
Alright, enough good, enough bad. Let's have some fun. So I guess America is metal. But as we learn, it is not just that Americans have been turned to metal, they've been turned to robots. They drink oil, they eat electricity, all their hair has been turned to wires, and every joint is a gear and cogs, and all of this because of radiation. Alright, I understand that the word ejaculated has multiple meanings. Now, over the last 64 years, we've pretty much phased out most of those meanings with the exception of the biological one. It just so happens to be one of Fletcher Pratt's favorite dialogue tags. With how exciting the story was, it's no wonder that it was used so much. But the amount of times that Gloria ejaculated in this story made me laugh and a little uncomfortable.
There's got to be a better way to say that.
I'm 12. Each character in this community is entertaining, and we are bombarded with a constant stream of early 20th century street-level New York vernacular. We don't so much have conversation as we do have layers of one-liners. Billions of people around the world are dead, but all of our characters are so light-hearted and joking that it seems like instead of being in a post-apocalyptic setting, they're just in detention and they're just trying to make the best of it. Now I say personalities, but in truth, every single character has the exact same quick-witted, sarcastic, constantly ribbing personality, which makes me think that we are not reading about characters that Pratt has written. We are reading about Pratt. Not a single character in this book is believable, but they sure were fun. Alright, what's the verdict? Thrift Shop. The concept is goofy, story chaotic, and then suddenly formulaic, and the cover is forgettable. It's not worth owning. If you see it in a thrift shop, leave it. That's where it belongs. But half of this book is a lot of fun in a guilty pleasure sort of way, and that saves it from returning to pulp. And that's my review of Invaders from Rigel. Maybe next time we'll find that lost classic, or something much worse. As of right now, I have about 170 pulp novels that I haven't read yet. My criteria for what I'll read next is based on how many novels I own of that particular author. I won't review another Andre Norton or Murray Leinster for a while just because they were so prolific and wrote so much that there's a good chance their work has already been exhaustively reviewed. At least that's the plan for now. So if you have any suggestions as to what I should read next, please let me know in the comments. I would love some help in this. Thanks again for joining me. Misery truly loves company. I'll see you next time for West of the Sun.
Pile of garbage.